I've been talking to someone new this week, someone that I had met through this platform who's in a very toxic relationship, in a very dangerous relationship. And it's got me thinking a lot about covert narcissism and how we end up missing it. I think that covert narcissists aren't any more deadly or dangerous than normal narcissists. But what happens is that we get taken in by them and we miss the early signs that we've met a narcissist, thinking that we've met somebody who's more like ourselves. So we make assumptions about this person because that the way that they initially present is so profoundly similar that we miss the initial signs that we've met someone who's very toxic. So let's dig into this today. Let's talk about covert narcissism, why we miss this, how can we better recognize the signs, and how that maybe you have some people in your life right now who seemingly so-called are your friends who are actually quite narcissistic. Um, One of the things that really profoundly changed my view on this is when I learned the difference between compassionate empathy and instrumental empathy. Suddenly it was like everything clicked and made sense. So I want to talk more about what that is and how we end up thinking when we meet somebody who seems so emotionally connected, so powerfully like us, that we miss the signs that we've met a narcissist and not somebody who's functional, who's emotionally functional. So hi, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. So nice to meet you guys. I'm a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and these days I primarily talk about narcissistic abuse and mental health issues. And I'm thrilled that you're here with me today. Couple rules to the live, and one is that we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion. And I prefer that you not comment on my appearance. It just makes it really awkward. But I'm so thrilled that you're joining me here today and that we can talk about narcissistic abuse, narcissism, and everything related. And I'm realizing as I'm sitting here that I don't have my glasses. So I'm going to have to put on my old pair that looks really awful so that I can see your comments. So I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. First of all, how are you all doing? I told you they're really old and I can barely see through them, but I may actually have to kind of lift my head a little bit so I can see. I'm hoping maybe there's another pair here. Nope, I'm not in luck. So I'm so thrilled that you're here today. Maybe sometimes I can roll it over. It allows me to, no, that feature's gone. TikTok teases me. It gives me features and then takes features away. So I'm thrilled that you're here, guys. Thank you so much. And for those who know me, I know that I love having you guys put thumbs up in your comments. So I know that you're talking to me and not talking to each other, because we can get really lively on these lives and talk about lots of issues. So what do you know about covert narcissists? What has confused you? What have been some concerns you've had? Maybe there's some myths that you want dispelled. I would love to tackle that. I know one of the myths that we're going around, and I know I'm going to piss off people saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway, is that covert narcissistic men are actually men who are in denial of their gayness, their queerness, and that they're hiding that. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some that do that, but I don't think that all covert male narcissists are doing it. So I think that there is a huge population that certainly hides things that they're ashamed of. And if anybody has issues around that and can't accept who they are, yes, they would certainly have a double life around that. But I don't think it's exclusive to covert narcissism. So what is covert narcissist? Do you guys actually know what it is and how it compares to overt narcissists? When we throw these terms around, another term you're going to hear covert narcissism is used is vulnerable narcissist, or fragile narcissist. So think of normally when we think of a narcissistic person, we think of somebody who's sort of the life of the party. Yes, there are women who are covert narcissists as well, Fable. You're exactly right. Are men more prone to be covert narcissists than women? I wouldn't say that, Oreo team. I wouldn't say that was more likely. I think that probably women look more covert-like when they're narcissistic because they're going to be using more passive-aggressive tactics. They're going to be using more of their feminine wiles. And that may look like a covert narcissist, but I just think it's related to the genders. I don't think it's really related to the type of narcissism. But I wouldn't say that. That's an interesting question. Are there more men than women? We know that there are more male narcissists than there are women narcissists. And partly, I think, again, that's socialization. I think it's a little more acceptable for men to sort of be this outward, larger than life person. But I don't think that's necessarily means that there aren't lots of pathological women. I think if you saw the YouTube content I created on this about the femme fatale, I think part of our problem is that we we have gotten so used to identifying men and seeing male narcissists that we've really misunderstood the female narcissist, and we don't recognize when we're seeing symptoms of it. We don't recognize that, and that she's there. I mean, because here's one way to kind of test this. How many people have complained about narcissistic moms? A lot of us do. A lot of us do. So if there are that many narcissistic moms, then that means there are that many narcissistic women. So why are we not talking about narcissistic women who are dating or narcissistic women as friends? Why are we not talking about that? I think it's because they hide better. And then when we start to see them raise children, the narcissism becomes more prevalent, more observable, and then we end up seeing it at that stage, but we kind of miss it. We miss it prior to that, not because it's not there. It's just that we've not been watching for it. Somebody's asking, Jade is asking, can I talk more about I'm sorry, I'm going to have problems with my glasses because they're progressive. So that means if I look normally at this screen, I'm going to struggle seeing it. And I really tried fluctuating this and I can't. I'm really tempted to go get my regular glasses so I can see. I'm really, really tempted. That's why I'm reading Instagram comments way easier because I can read them. Yeah, yeah. So Manette saying, my understanding is that malignant narcissists are more sadistic. I could be off. No, you're right. You're right about that. Um, you're exactly right. This live just started at 4 o'clock. I do lives now at 4. So, but are women narcissistic women friends takers? That's a good question. So yeah, let's talk about narcissism, and then let's talk about narcissism in the sexes, how it kind of shows up in the sexes, but then also let's then talk about narcissism and how it shows up covertly versus overtly, because we have all these dissections, all these differences, and I want to make sure that we talk about that. And so, hey, Giant Slayer, so good to see you. Pepe Lemasiha. So nice. I think you're new to me. Good afternoon. And Mariel, I always love seeing you, Meryl. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. So someone's saying, Winston saying, my wife says I'm a covert narcissist. So let's get into this. I mean, I'm hearing these lots of conversations. So let's get into it. Narcissism, if you were to look at the DSM-5, the criteria, there's 9 criteria. You need to have 5 positive in order to be diagnosed. Primarily what it's describing is someone who's prone to jealousy. They think they're special and entitled. They think the rules don't follow to them. They tend to be exploitive in their relationships. They tend to be very struggle with the perspective of other people and having intimate relationships because they struggle with empathy and the ability to relate to another person's emotion. And this is where it gets into danger, because it's not that they don't have empathy. It's not that they don't. It's that the way in which they're using their feelings, their emotional experience is different than the typical person. Like I said at the start of this, one of the things that really profoundly shifted my worldview, because when I met the narcissistic ex that I was in a relationship, and I wrote about it in the book Love You More, he was emotional. I mean, he would look at his photos of his young children, his young child, and cry. When I would give him a touching gift, he would be very moved about it. When he was upset, he would connect around that. He talked about things that he regretted, and that confused me. I had assumed that narcissists are devoid of emotion. They're devoid of empathy and they're devoid of sensitivity, and that is not true. But what's different about narcissistic, and I also would say this is true of a lot of cluster B, is that they they have what's called compassionate empathy versus, I'm sorry, they have instrumental empathy versus compassionate empathy. So let's talk about the differences of that. Compassionate empathy is when you share something with me that's powerful, like say a Hallmark card commercial, we watch it together and it's really moving and I tear up and respond to that, and I feel some sympathy for it, or I feel emotionally moved. That's example of compassionate empathy. So for example, if you heard that I was really sick a few weeks ago and you reached out and said something to me and you said you were concerned about me, you are showing compassionate empathy. So a lot of people have empathy in the sense of they, it's called mind mapping. That's what Dr. David Snarf said. He said by the age of 4, we're able to get into the mind of another person and anticipate their responses. That's why 4-year-olds or 3-year-olds start to lie. They know what their mom and dad's up to. They know what they want to hear, and they sculpt the answer in their immature fashion to fit what they think their parent wants to hear in order to get out of the situation. They're already being manipulative. That's that. But so a lot of us have empathy, but it's what we do with our empathy. So that's where instrumental empathy comes in. Instrumental empathy is the ability to know what somebody else is experiencing in a particular situation, and you use it manipulatively, exploitively to your advantage. And that's what a lot of us are seeing in narcissistic people. We're seeing them anticipate our move. For example, here's one of the big ways a lot of us get played. We like to believe in the goodness of other people, and we like to give people as many chances as possible, and we really believe in loyalty and commitment. They know this about us. They anticipate this about us, and then they use that strategically in order to keep us to the relationship. That's why breadcrumbing is so effective. The minute they sense you starting to pull back or pull out, they then do something that gives you hope, or makes you feel like maybe they really are doing all the hard work that they say are doing. They do something that's reminiscent of the love bombing phase that makes you get kind of like believe in the possibility, or begin to dream about what could, or think that maybe this could be saving, or maybe that the therapy is working, and then you stay out longer, and you stay longer as a result of that. That's an example of using instrumental empathy, the ability to sense what's happening with you, to sense your pullback, your disengagement, your detachment, maybe your growing apathy. They sense that, they sense your frustration, and they instrumentally use it in order to keep you in the relationship, in order to control you. And a lot of you are saying, well, why would they do that? Because maybe they're done and they've been mad at me and they're really critical of me and we're having fights all the time, because they want the relationship on their conditions. They don't want you leaving when you're ready to leave. They want to leave when they're ready to leave. They need to have control. So they may not be happy with you. They may be completely bored or disenfranchised or completely disillusioned with you, but they want to leave on their basis. They're not going to have you hurt them or reject them or get out. They don't want to lose control. So they're going to do things in a way in order to maintain the relationship. So, yes, so you'll see empathy. That's the big piece. We often think, oh, they're just cold-hearted monsters, and they're just, yes, they do cold-hearted things for sure, for sure. And some of them have more higher stats of sadisticness. You're going to see more ruthlessness, absolutely. But they also have the ability to know what's going on with you in an incredible way, probably better than you are knowing what's going on with them. They probably have a better radar for that. And so they're able to then sort of maneuver things sophisticatedly in the direction that you need in order for them to keep you on the hook and on the line and stuck in the relationship. Does that make sense about the difference between compassionate and instrumental empathy? Because when we see sensitivity, we think, oh, this person's healthy. We think they have emotional sophistication. Look, that's a sign of a high IQ. I mean, a high EQ is what I mean. It's a sign of a high EQ. No, what you're seeing is someone who's very strategic and probably predatory. Probably predatory. Gemma, they're not faking the empathy. They're not faking it. What they're faking is their interest, their investment in you. They're faking that they care about you. So when they show up and do these breadcrumbing moments, like what mine used to do is he used to go, he was picking up a prostitute or at least texting one, doing something he shouldn't have. And it was on a weekend because he had this mindset of weekends are to do things that he wanted to do. So what he would do on Sundays, he would go and take me to brunch. By the way, I was paying for it because he wasn't making any money, but he would take me to brunch and then buy me a gift, an expensive gift. Why? Because he sensed that I probably thought the weekend didn't go well, that he was disappearing, that he wasn't really around, something was wrong, I wasn't happy. And so he would catch my feelings and then do something to lead me on to make me think that we had the relationship even though it really wasn't all that good. That's how he would do that. Yes, they do cry. Jen is asking, do they cry? Are they faking it? Mine would actually have full-blown panic attacks. And by the way, as a psychologist, I know what panic attacks are. I've had them personally. I've witnessed them. They were real. So how could somebody who supposedly had no empathy be able to pull off a panic attack? That to me is the amazing part of this. Now, was it in the same level of distress? Was it causing them kind of the remorse and regret that it would cause me? Because he would have panic attacks about something really bad, like being caught about something. And then suddenly he would melt down or like, oh, I'm such a bad person. I think what's happening there, and I'm going to make some guesses. I think that what they do is they're able to compartmentalize their emotions so sophisticatedly, so well, that they're able to sort of tap into that shame piece and react, but they're also able to sort of box it, put it away, and have it disappear once that serves their purpose. So I do think there's moments where they're authentically present with themselves, but I don't think these are long lasting and have a profoundly impactful change. It doesn't lead to true remorse and true regret and true shifting and changing of themselves. We're talking about narcissists. Someone's asking who is the they that we're referring to. So, yeah, somebody said, none. It says, damn, Kerry, yours was a cold-blooded one. Yes, I had a very cold-blooded one. I was married to a narcissistic sociopath or a malignant narcissist. In other words, I was married to somebody who had both antisocial personality traits as well as narcissistic personality traits. Yes, he was very pathological, very pathological. Not all of them are. I know people, I have someone close to me in my life who's a hero narcissist. They present very differently, very, very differently. Yeah, so Jenna said, I did a huge mistake last Thursday. I called him out and his rage scared me. I thought he was going to kill me. Yes, what you saw was what's called a narcissistic wound. You, in some way, tapped into his vulnerability, his fragility as a person, as a self. He felt completely undone by what you did. And when that happened, by the way, we're all prone to narcissistic wounds. If you somehow insult me and I feel that rise, that response, that ego response of like, oh my goodness, that's so upsetting, said to me, hey, it looks like you've been gaining weight or something. I would like, I would respond. That's a narcissistic wound. But hopefully most of us have the ability to sort of self-soothe so that we can recover and deal with it appropriately, not defensively, certainly not with rage. But when you don't have the ego structure, Jenna, like your partner doesn't, and that happens, they come unglued. They come unglued. How many of you guys are watching HBO's TV series? It's in the 4th season, Succession, the TV series on HBO called Succession. I'll tell you, almost all those personalities on that family, I can barely stand to watch it because this family is so hyper toxic. They're almost all narcissists. And the father, Roy Logan, I think that's his name, is ultimately ultra. He is a great example of a narcissistic sociopath. Perfect example. Frightening. Oh, he's a malignant narcissist. His oldest son, I would say, is trying to think of the kid's name. He's a doofus. I think he's one of the dumber ones of the three. He is, I would say he's more probably a borderline personality disorder. And then the daughter, Shiv, I would say Shiv is more classical narcissist. And then the youngest son, who actually at first I thought was really a mess, but actually he's probably the most brilliant. He's probably the most together too, but he's very vulnerable. I would say he's got narcissistic traits, but I also think that he's He's trying to keep his head up in this super, super sick family. He's not very well. I wouldn't say he's very well, but hey, by the way, please call me Kerry. Somebody's asking, hey, is it okay if I say Kerry versus Dr. McAvoy? Yes, I am Dr. McAvoy, but I certainly, I don't mind you guys calling me Kerry. I prefer that actually. So yeah, it's totally fine for you to do that. Yeah, Dr. Ramani mentioned Succession. It's a fascinating. If you guys want to watch an up close example of a family tearing itself to pieces, tearing everybody around them to pieces, and the way they treat their board, sheesh, horrific. I don't know why those board members stay around. Everybody is terrified of everybody else. It's oh my goodness, it's powerful. So if you want to watch that in slow, kind of like in over 4 seasons, if you can tolerate it, I can like watch one episode a night and like, okay, I'm done. It's just too toxic. But they're doing a really good job. I would say they're doing a good job. Yeah, there is a lot of narcissism gem on TV. I agree. Oh, and thank you, Taffy, so much. And thank you. I just realized I have supporters on YouTube. I'm embarrassed, guys. And Taffy, you're one of them. Thank you so much for being a supporter of mine. And I have changed the benefits so they're a little more, current and appropriate and feasible. So I hope you check them out. If you're on YouTube and you're watching me, I hope you check out the benefits for subscribers, particularly at the super thriver level. And thank you so much, guys. You just I just don't have enough to say. I'm so touched. I also my club, my toxic free relationship club, I've made some big changes to it. It is we do office hours every week. So if you enjoy this and you'd like more of a personal experience, more specific to you, you get to see me, you get to talk to me, we get to do this back and forth as a group. And you also want all the access to all my resources. That's what you get inside the Toxic Free Relationship Club. It's not cheap. I want to warn you. It's a little less, well, it's less expensive than seeing me for a counseling appointment, but although I do coaching these days, but for less than the cost of one coaching call a month, you get weekly office hours, all sorts of support, all sorts of access to benefits. So if you find that this is helpful and you're looking to really take your healing up a step, you're looking to like understand more, you should check out Toxic Free Relationship Club. You get my book, you get my courses, we do trainings, we do breath work, we do all sorts of stuff inside of that. Yeah, divorcing a narcissist is absolutely a nightmare. It really is. It is your most vulnerable time when you guys are at the most risk of being injured. You're at the most risk of being hurt. And it happens because back to what I was saying about the narcissistic wound, because invariably, no matter who's leaving whom, the fact that there's abandonment and separation occurring, that's always a wound to our sense of self. That is a narcissistic wound for both partners. And as a result, the person who is a more fragile ego is going to become enraged over the way things are. They're going to claim that it's unfair. They're going to claim that you're taking advantage of them. They're going to claim that you're cheating them or you're cheating them out of something. They're going to claim that the courts are not working in their favor. They're going to claim something. And as a result, they're going to then see you as the focus. It's your fault this is happening. They're not going to see themselves as they led to this downfall, or even they won't even remember they wanted it. They're not going to even remember they wanted it. And they're going to claim that somehow they're going to blame all of it and attach it to you. And then that rage is going to potentially can turn violent. So please have a good exit plan. Please have a safety plan. It's so pivotal that you guys know that you do that, because it's really, really important. That's when you guys are at the greatest risk. I know for me, I was terrified. I really feared for my life. Really, really feared. Now, I say that was a reverse discard. What I get it wrong. What I mean is that I set it up to where he discarded me. I wanted out, but I made sure he left me knowing it was a safer thing than me leaving him. I waited for him to leave me. And I knew it was coming because all the signs were coming, but I helped it along by becoming detached and uninvested and I just didn't react. So I sort of fed his boredom so that he would leave me knowing that I was safer than me walking out, that was going to be a way, way safer. So yeah, please, please, please be very careful about that time. That is the most risky time. So let's go back to covert versus overt narcissism. So interestingly enough, the longitudinal studies on narcissists, are we surprised that they tend to do pretty successful? Isn't that wild? They tend to kind of have upward mobility because the bravado and the confidence, not because they see things through, not because they have good track records, not because that they are reliable people or they're disciplined. No, they don't. They're not. None of that. But what happens is because of the confidence, because of the way that they lead with all this excessive bravado, we tend to find ourselves taken in by the charisma, and then we end up assuming things about them that may not actually be true. So isn't that wild? Now, I have a feeling if we were really look at the more pathological people, I'm thinking that that's probably more the ones with lesser, because the more pathological tend to do a lot of self-destruction. So, but interestingly, but what happens is there's another group of narcissists that don't have all this bravado. They don't have they're not oozing charisma and they're not oozing confidence. And that's what was called the vulnerable or the covert narcissist. They tend to be a little more introverted. They tend to be a little more kind of sensitive and soft. So we end up not seeing we end up thinking, oh, the life of the party, or the person that can't shut up, or the person that's always has the best story, or always assumes control of the conversation. But we miss it. There is another type of person who is also narcissistic, but is the inverse in the presentation, meaning the inverse of the overt, kind of larger than life, is the sort of the reclusive, shy, self-effacing, introverted one. That's the vulnerable narcissist. But everything else is the same. They're still exploitive. They still don't have empathy for you. They're still very self-obsessed. They tend to be very preoccupied with themselves. But here's one of the things to kind of learn to recognize them. Don't mistake insensitive and emotional and emotive for healthy. That doesn't mean anything. Look for somebody instead who's reciprocity. There's got to be this showing up for you the same degree that you show up for them. Showing sensitivity to your pain in your life in the same level that you show up pain for them. They tend to overplay the victim card. If you listen a lot, if you just really listen to the theme of their life story, it's always what's going wrong and what's not going right and how life is unfair. That's one of their favorite storylines. Their favorite narrative is how life is super unfair. We think, oh, we can connect around this unfairness. It's unfair for them. It's unfair for me. They'll show up for me and care about me in the same way I care about him or her. But you're going to find out that they don't. That when it's your turn, whether it's a woman or a man, whether it's your friend or your partner who ends up you needing help, they're absent. Or worse yet, they'll say that you're raining on their parade. You're making life hard, or they'll gaslight you, exaggerating. You always make everything a big deal. So they're if they get a cold, it's 3 days in bed. You get a cold, you're ruining their party. Why do you need to take any time off? So you'll see that lack of fairness, that lack of that reciprocity. So watch out for that. That's one big way to recognize them. Another big way to recognize them is that life never gets better, and they seem to be in this self-fulfilling pit. Like it goes from one bad thing to the next bad thing to the next bad thing, and they don't just seem to know how to kind of get their life on track, and they create chaos. Now, you're going to notice that about all personality disorders is a lack of adaptability and a lack of flexibility. But when you see a lot of chaos and drama, you've met a personality disorder. Please back up, back out. That's a big sign that you have met somebody who's not healthy, because they just create just lots and lots of drama, and they make lots of decisions that kind of perpetuate their situation and perpetuate their problems. Yeah, you're right, Samantha. It's a chronic state of catastrophic. They're kind of catastrophizing. Can't say that word today. They make things catastrophic. Everything's catastrophic. And it is. It's very unreal and very, very unstable. Yeah. And Taffy, you're right. They steal from everybody. So yours ended up embezzling from the company. Wow, that's interesting. It's very, very interesting. Yeah, exactly, Fable. You're right. If you're tired, they're more tired than you. If you're sick, they're sicker than you. Absolutely. You're exactly right. It's always a competition. So recognize that. Recognize the competitive nature. So don't mistake in the sensitivity, the emotional piece, thinking this is a person who sees things cooperatively. No, they still view things competitively. Whether it's a woman or a man, they still view things competitively. Yeah, Connie said, "Oh, this is me. It's never ending. I would enter the hospital each time worrying of me, and he would use my health to gain sympathy." You know what mine would do? I was named top writer on Quora, and he told the whole world that I got top writer. I wasn't even making the big announcement. He made the big announcement to everybody in the entire, even the women he was seeing. He had to tell them that I got top writer so that they would all respond back to him and congratulate him. It was so bizarre. I mean, I just thought the whole thing was so weird. Oh, I'm Jenna. I'm glad this is helpful to you. Yeah. You know, Fable, you're making a powerful point, a very powerful point. You said, and I love this, this person, whether it's a woman or a man, is draining me. I find them annoying and exhausting. Thank you for that. That's that there. One of the things we need to get really better at is tuning into how people make us feel. Toxic people make us feel feelings that are uncomfortable. One of the feelings we will feel perpetually is exhaustion. It feels like they're always wanting something. Something's never enough. They need to be entertained. We feel like we're being pulled out of us all the time. We'll also feel edgy. We'll always feel like the ground underneath of us is not solid and we're waiting for the next huge upset. So really pay attention to how you're experiencing. Your feelings is telling you what's happening in the relationship. I don't know if you realize that. Therapists, psychologists are trained to use our feelings to tell us a whole lot about what's happening in therapy. Let me give you, for instance, if you were to come into my office and you started to chit chat and didn't bring up the issue that would brought you to therapy, I would be bored. I would feel sleepy and completely bored. And that's a sign to me when I was feeling boredom is that I am meeting someone who's not doing work. They're not really in their feelings and they're not talking about anything that's certain important. Because look, how many times have you been in a conversation you feel super awake? What's happening in the conversation? That person's going deep with you. That deepness, you sense it and it livens you and it wakes you up. When you're around somebody who's chaotic and creating all sorts of drama and never happy and never satisfied and always wants more, you feel drained. You feel like given out, like you can't do enough, like they've taken everything, all your life force from you. So that's one of the really great tip offs that you've met somebody who's in trouble is this feeling of just like yeah, you just feel exhausted, completely exhausted. So pay attention to how people make you feel. If you feel edgy and not safe, you're not safe. Something's happening in this relationship that's leaving you unsafe. If you feel like you're not enough or you got to be super careful or you can't show up like yourself, again, that's probably another sign that you're with a narcissistic person, that they're discontented with everything because they have this idealistic picture and you sense that and you feel like you can't really be you. You can't let down and just relax and be yourself. See, all these things that you're sensing inside, the way you feel when you're with somebody, gives you a lot of powerful information about who you're actually with. I don't counsel these days. I closed my counseling practice in 2015. I'm still licensed to practice. I do offer one-time consultations. So if you're looking for something like, I really want to know your opinion, but really the best way to have access to me is to join Toxic Free Relationship Club, where I do weekly office hours, video calls with my group. I do all sorts of trainings inside that. I do, you have my copy of my book and my courses, and I'm about ready to release a new book with Lisa Sunny and I are releasing a workbook, 6 Obstacles to Healing. And then we're going to be releasing it in the next month. It's called Surviving to Thriving. It's a workbook. So the way to get all of this resources. Oh, and the other super thing I'm super excited about is my webinars in the future are only going to be for the group. And I've already slated Lee Hammock, an interview just with him and me and the group. We're slated to do that at the end of August. So Toxic Free Relationship Club members get a complimentary ticket to the webinar. It's free for the academy level, and it's a discounted price for the lower level, and you can even bring a friend. I'm going to allow you guys to buy a ticket for a friend, but it's not going to be sold to the public. It's only going to be sold inside the club. So yeah, if those are things that if you find this really interesting and you really like this kind of a training and help and support, and then you get the community support. So please consider joining Toxic Free Relationship Club. Like I said, it's not cheap. The lower level support for $75 a month, and the higher level is all of this and everything for $100 a month. But it's still less than a cost of a coaching call. And you get so much more than you would ever get in a coaching call with me, honestly. So just a thought for you guys. Yeah, I'm going to read back the comments. So the world needs to know more about covert and vulnerable. I agree. I agree. They're very trapping people, very draining, trapping people. That's very true. And then they suck the life out of you, and you feel like you can't breathe. Yeah, and she said, I actually looked forward to his yearly trip away so I could have a week to myself. That's a big sign that you're in trouble when you're feeling like you're giving up. That you got to, because here's what's happening. Let me kind of explain what's happening. We all have what's called ego structures. It's how you handle crises. It's how you process your emotions. It's how you plan for your life. You make goals, do all of that stuff. That's your structure. It's your discipline, your judgment, your insight, your ability to handle knowing how to self-soothe, all these wonderful skills. When you don't have a good set of them, they're not strong. So imagine, for example, you have a garage, but in your garage, you don't have the best tools. They're very fragile, and you don't have hardly any of them at all. So what are you going to do when, say that you have something that's broken in your house and you need it to fix? You're going to then lean into your neighbor who's got the most tricked out, fantastic garage with every tool you can imagine, and they're all high quality, right? You're going to be over there borrowing that guy's tool. Well, that's what happens in these relationships. When we're in a relationship with somebody who has a cluster B personality disorder, they have their ego structure is not very strong. It's not very durable. It doesn't have a whole lot of tools. And so what they do is they borrow from everyone around them. They're borrowing your discipline. They're borrowing your initiative. They're borrowing your imagination. They're borrowing you from emotionally to sort of rein them in and hold them together. And then they do all this acting out because they don't have the regulation inside them. They don't have that ability to sort of manage that. So then they do this horrific acting out that then just breaks your heart, hurts you, cuts your gut out, all this hurtful stuff. So they're borrowing and leaning into you for resources, while at the same time they're slashing and stabbing and doing all sorts of emotionally hurtful stuff because of their lack of sensitivity, their self-centeredness, because in their world, and I just read this from Donna Savary's book on echoism. Somebody asked me about echoism earlier. I don't know if that person's still here, but Donna Savary wrote this theoretical book on echoism, and she said, and I love it, she said, to a narcissist, their internal representation of the world, when you were to close your eyes and imagine who's most important to you in the world, most of us see people who are really important to us. We see ourselves. We see maybe our children, maybe we see our partner, maybe we see our family. But when they close their eyes and imagine the world, the only person that's in that world is themselves. There is no one else in that world, not their partner, not their extended family, not their children, no one, not their friends. There is no one that populates the world but themselves. Well, that's a huge handicap, because then you're going to make decisions that are really hurtful because there is no one else that you're considering when you make a decision. You make a decision solely in your best interest. I love that. 2 people said, wow, across 2 channels. Yeah, it's shocking, but it makes sense. When we start to understand their worldview, then this makes more sense why they do what they do, why they cheat. But don't you ever cheat, because they're going to probably destroy you for cheating. But it's okay if they cheat, because in their world, there's only them. And they want it. So who are they hurting? In their minds, no one, because no one exists. But on the other hand, I love my co-host on Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse. So you guys don't know if you guys know I have a podcast, but on my podcast, Tara Blair Ball and I talked about this, and she said, you're no more than an iPhone. So if their iPhone reached out and slapped you, say that it had electrical problems and started shocking you, what would you do? You get rid of the iPhone, right? That's what they do. They get rid of you. You cause a problem, they get rid of you. Because how dare you? Because they're the only person that matters. It's a really screwed up, broken way worldview. It really, really is. It super is. Oh, Johnny, you're a listener. I'm so glad you guys listen. That's perfect. I thank you. Giant Slayer says, wow, it was like you were in that toxicity with me. Yeah, isn't it amazing that when we talk about this, once you start to understand their worldview and understand their framework, we can say these things, and it's like I met your partner and I met your friend and I met your family member, because when you have the same lens and you're seeing the world from the same way, then you behave in similar directions. You do the same things. Our problem is we don't get into their mind. We don't see how they see the world, and then we use our world frame as a way to predict their behavior, and that keeps us stuck way too long. It makes us not take enough steps to protect ourselves better. It makes us blind to the fact that they're doing things that are super risky to us. I mean, one of the things that makes me sick now is I was married to somebody who is basically, he was a sex addict, having all sorts of unprotected sex, putting me tremendously at risk for all sorts of horrific things. Thank God none of that happened. But he didn't care. He didn't care he could have killed me. And all he was thinking is what he wanted. What he wanted is what he wanted, a new adventure every single time he turned around. So those are the things you got to really watch out for. Really, really watch out for. Here's the other thing I want you to start to think about. If your gut is saying something bad's happening, chances are it is happening. Chances are it's probably not your paranoia. Probably you on your own would never imagine these things. It's your sixth sense trying to watch out for you, saying, warning, warning, there's danger here. Warning. Now, this is a great question. Do they know they're narcissist, and how do they become self-aware? Like, how did Lee Hammock get on his I know, actually, I've met Lee several times. I know him personally. So he's a great guy, and he's 6 years of therapy. He's done a lot of work. Some of them know and some of them don't know. The person I was married to guessed he was narcissistic. He would joke about it, but I don't think he took it seriously, and I don't think he knew what it meant. I think he just knew it was a bad thing and he thought it was kind of funny. But and then the problem is, if you guys saw my video on this, it's a disorder. It's a disorder. They end up I'm autistic. I see the world from an autistic viewpoint. I have no idea what it's not like to see the world from a non-autistic perspective. In fact, I just visited my son and he said, you should come back. So autistic people take things literally. I'm thinking he means I should come back today. I can't come back today. I have all of these appointments. But he wasn't meaning today. He's meaning you should come back. Let's do this again. But see, I always hear it literally. So if someone says it's raining cats and dogs, I do think cats and dogs. I know they don't mean that, but my mind wants to, like, where's the dogs and cats falling from? So I don't know what it's like to hear things from a non-autistic way. In the same way, narcissistic people are hardwired differently, just like autistic people are hardwired differently. They have a grid. They see the world differently. They're very egocentric. They don't have a whole lot of remorse or guilt. They tend to really struggle with cognitive dissonance. In other words, conflict, inconsistencies, immoralities, like in a lack of integrity doesn't bother them. It bothers people who are normal. It very much bothers us when we have this kind of, like, we're doing something we say we shouldn't do. But for them, they can live with those inconsistencies because that part of the brain is wired differently. So a lot of them don't know that. They end up thinking that I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Some autistic people, are you describing? No, I'm talking about narcissism. I'm not talking about autism. I'm talking about narcissism. I was using autism as an example of hardwiring. So narcissism is hardwired. And as a result, they just see the world differently. And they don't realize it's boring. I mean, that they're like running from boredom. They have issues with shame. They don't realize that they are constantly making chaos and inflexibility and all. They don't recognize that. They end up Giant Slayer, you better not use the word narcissistic when you talk to a person. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I They don't recognize that. They see you having a problem with them is you having a problem. You're the problem. They don't have a problem with themselves because they are themselves. But you having a problem with them, that makes the problem. So most of them don't know in the real true sense of the word. I know for Lee, what happened is that his wife called him out. I think they were having a really bad moment and things were kind of coming to a big kind of a crisis point, and she said, you're a narcissist. And I think he went and looked it up and he read up on it, like, damn, yeah, I'm awfully narcissist. That describes me. And I think that he got frightened, and he decided he didn't want to be that way and he didn't want to raise kids that way. So he got really serious about it. And so he's doing a lot of hard work. But he's rare. And I want you to hear that, because a lot of you see him and think, oh, there's hope. Look, all the hard work he's doing and all the great things he's doing for everybody. And he is awesome. If you guys are not following Mental Healness, please follow him. He's fantastic. But he is rare. He internally motivates himself to be different. It is not that he is now different. He still wants to respond in narcissistic ways, but he's learned to hear it, reject it, and move in a different direction. That takes a lot of discipline. And unfortunately, a lot of narcissistic people don't have that kind of discipline. They're not that invested. They're too self-centered. They don't care enough about other people's feelings. They don't want to kind of rat out the fun of life and doing what they want to do when they want to do it. And they don't make those kinds of changes. So please don't use him as an example of why there may be hope in your relationship. Chances are there isn't any hope. I would say, because here's the thing, how much does an average person change in life? Have you ever thought about that? So just you right now, if you were to go out and do lots and lots of therapy, how profoundly different do you think you could end up being with all that hard work? 5% different, 10% different? And what does that look like? That kind of difference look like? And is it enough to make you, like, if you're a super messy person, do you think you'd ever not be super messy? Do you think to a neat Nick who wants you not to be messy, do you think you'd ever be anywhere near what they'd want? Absolutely not, right? I agree. 10, 15%, maybe we can change it. Probably a super messy person maybe can learn to do their laundry on a more regular basis, but I bet you they're never going to keep everything straight and in its spot. They're not. So when you're talking about a more profoundly damaged person, a more profoundly different person with these massive deficits, how much are they going to change? Are they going to ever be an easy person? Are they going to ever care about your feelings and show up for you in the way that you need them to? Are they going to ever learn how to take ownership of their emotions and not gaslight you or be highly conflictual or do that funny narcissistic word salad? Probably not. Probably not. Are they ever going to really show up and care for you in the way that you need to when you're sick? Probably not. So you're committing yourself at best to a very lonely life, and at worst to someone who may at points actually be harmful to you or your health, or even at outright danger and risk to yourself. I feel bad saying this because I'm a person who really likes, I would not have got into psychology and become a psychologist if I didn't believe in the goodness of people and believe in our ability to change. I don't like saying this. And here's the thing, can they change? Yeah, absolutely. But do they want to? Will they do the work? Are they motivated to? Well, when you're the only person in your mind, you're the only person that you see, that's kind of hard to be motivated to do anything about that. It really is. You're completely self-absorbed. So part of it is that you end up in a self-fulfilling bind, a self-fulfilling prophetic bind. They create their problems, they fail to see their problems, and then they can't change it because they can't see it, and they're creating it. And how do you break out of that? I don't know how you break out of that. It is so, I agree, it is so heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking. I have loved people deeply who are broken like this. I want so much better for them, but I can't make them better. And I've had to come to the place of accepting that I didn't make them this way and I cannot fix them. And for me, trying to stay with them in order to somehow make their life better is to sacrifice too much of myself in the process. It's way too much. Way too much. Yeah, user, why do they cheat? Why do they cheat? Because there's the only person in their mind that they exist, because they're prone to being very bored, because they are perpetually hungry for attention. And so as a result, they think nothing of the massive wound that does the relationship, or the massive wound does the partner to cheat. All they're thinking is they are the 2-year-old in the grocery aisle melting down with the mother or father who wants the candy bar, even though dinner is only 5 minutes away. They want what they want when they want it, and no one else matters. And you're seeing an adult version of a toddler's tantrum when they're cheating. That's why they do it. No better reason. I agree, Fable. Sometimes you have to leave broken people broken and sad. I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry that I am not reading more of TikTok, your comments. I can't see it because of my glasses. So I apologize. I don't mean to be overlooking you guys. And I appreciate you being here. I'm really struggling because I didn't stop to go get my right glasses. And I can't, it used to have where you could move the comments and see them larger, but I can't see it. Yeah, I love that, Giant Slayer. Don't confuse intelligence with maturity. Absolutely. And Mariel says, I'm insulting all the toddlers in the world. I think those toddlers can cope, because good news for most toddlers, they'll outgrow it. And we all know that, and we love them for it. So I last few minutes here. Any last big questions for me before we wrap it up? This has been amazing. Is narcissism inherited? Oh, that's a great last question. So let's end on that. Yes, it is actually shown to be a genetic. There's a genetic predisposition to it. They did twin studies. And other people say, "Oh, twins, that means they're raised together." No, no, no. When you hear science talking about twin studies, that means twins raised apart, identical twins raised apart. Okay. Otherwise, it confounds. If you're raised in the same family, then we can't tease out, is this nature or nurture? No, no, they're talking about twins raised apart. So they looked at that, and they looked at across all the personality disorders. And interestingly enough, twins raised apart, identical twins raised apart, 70% both had narcissism. So if one was narcissistic, the other one 70% of the time was narcissistic. Now, that says to us, as those researchers, that's not perfectly inherited. There's room for 30% that are not. That means there's some nurture issues, but there's a lot of nature involved, a lot of nature. Now, here's the other question about neurology. Yes, they've observed differences in the brain functioning of narcissists versus the average person. But here's one thing we also know is that narcissists, I'm sorry, I got preoccupied with a question. Somebody said, environmental experiences, early environmental experiences affects brain development. I bet you didn't know that. Maybe you didn't, maybe you did. Did you know a big portion of those who are developmentally delayed sometimes is due to an impoverished environment? In other words, we can actually cause low IQ by having an overly impoverished environment. So some of what you see neurologically is being directly affected by what happens to us in our childhood and those formative years. So it's hard to tease out, is this strictly genetics, or is there also nurture problems that's causing this? But here's the other big issue. It gets us into this trap when we try to understand narcissism. Is it genetic? Is it nurture? Is it trauma? It makes us feel sorry for the behavior, and we need to not fall into that trap. People always have free choice. Always. We can always improve and be different. We can always wake up and do something. So just because someone has had a rough life or an impoverished environment, or maybe genetic predisposition doesn't mean we excuse bad behavior. So please be really, really careful about why we care about it. Why do we care? Well, yeah, it's interesting information, but when it really comes down to the end of the day, we need to hold each other accountable for the way that we treat each other and the way that we care about each other. And toxic people are harmful to you and I. We need to be careful about that. I know somebody is been asking me a big question, and they even put it in caps, and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading the comments on TikTok. I am really apologize for that. I'll make sure I wear my butter glasses the next time. Hey, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate hanging out with all of you. I know I didn't answer all your questions, and thank you so much for being here. Do they cheat because they're trying to hurt you? Yeah, sometimes, absolutely. Sometimes it's a sadistic move, absolutely. Yeah. If you think that it is being done for that reason, then chances are that it is being done for that reason. All right, you guys, this is awesome. I'll be back on next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. I love this so much. If you really are looking for more support like this, please reach out and ask about the Toxic Free Relationship Club, because that's of this on steroids, and it's less than a coaching call a month. And you guys are really, really amazing. And I'll see you back here next Tuesday. Bye bye.